Boy, 2014 was a great year for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. At the beginning of the year, we were given Captain America Winter Soldier, one of the most popular and successful films in the MCU and a personal favorite of mine. And then later on that year, we were given Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Now, unless you're a comic book fan, you've probably never heard of the Guardians. But that didn't matter because this film went on to become an absolute blockbuster. Its collective ensemble cast really hit all the right notes, really setting the stage for Marvel moving forward, and paving the way to the triumphant release of Avengers Endgame 5 years later, thus completing the Infinity Stone saga. It seemed like Marvel could do no wrong. However, sometimes when we are at our highest and everything is right in the world, reality kicks us in the butt and knocks us back down. And the last couple years, well, that's kind of what's been occurring in the MCU. Not counting Spider-Man Long Way Home, which was a huge hit in its own right, the other 7 movies released since Endgame have either been very mediocre or flat out terrible. In fact, the last MCU release, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, was really disliked by fans and most critics, and it really did seem to go in and out of the theaters pretty quickly. Now, many people are starting to think that superhero fatigue has begun to set in. There's just been too many movies and TV shows put out too quickly, and they're pretty much all the same. And honestly, I can't blame them. So, into this environment, Marvel released Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 this past weekend. Marvel is really in the need of a big win here to get itself back on track, to show that it's still the money-making juggernaut it was only a few years ago. But will it? Before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about this movie. Now, I'll do my best not to spoil things, but there are going to be a few minor spoilers in here, so you are warned. Now, we find the Guardians have established their headquarters on a rebuilt nowhere, which we saw in the last movie, and also in the Christmas special, which if you haven't checked out, you should. It's pretty entertaining. So late one night, they are attacked by Adam Warlock, a sovereign created by their high priestess in revenge for the Guardians previously stealing from her people. Now, after Adam overpowers most of the Guardians and seriously injured Rocket, he is eventually stopped by Nebula, though he is able to flee. Now, the Guardians are unable to tend to Rocket's wounds due to a kill switch embedded in him, which they identify as being made by the company Orgocorp. They resolve to go to the Orgosphere, the headquarters of this company, in order to find and override code. And from then on, the movie bounces back between Rocket reliving his creation by the High Evolutionary and the Guardians' attempt to save his life. Your main cast of Guardians all return to their roles. Chris Pratt once again plays Star-Lord, David Bautista as Drax the Destroyer, Karen Gilliam as Nebula, Bradley Cooper as the voice of Rocket, Vin Diesel as the voice of Groot, Zoe Saldana as Gamora, and Pom Klementieff as Mantis. In this movie, our main villain is the High Evolutionary, who is played by Shakespearean actor Chiwetel Ejiofor, making his MCU debut. And at the helm once again is James Gunn. Now, Gunn is moving to the DC universe to try to salvage that mess, and this was his last movie over here for Marvel. And it wouldn't be a Guardians movie without a long list of 70s and 80s pop songs playing. In fact, I would say it was a little bit too much this time. But hey, who doesn't love to hear No Sleep Till Brooklyn by the Beastie Boys? Now, I'll admit, I was kind of skeptical coming into this film. Marvel has really let us down over the past couple years. Bad TV shows, movies with bloated scripts, overdone, and poorly done CGI. But I came out of this movie, well, fairly pleased. No, it's not perfect. It's kind of long, 2.5 hours. Honestly, could have been trimmed down at least a half hour. Some of the CGI, it's not terrible, but it's a bit jarring. And some of the jokes may be overdone. Also, the movie continuously tries to get you to believe someone is going to die. There's a lot of fake outs. Now, here's your spoiler. No one dies. I mean, I guess that's a good thing, but honestly, I think killing off one or two of your main cast would have given the movie a little bit more weight. But instead, we just got jokes and fake outs. And the end kind of just happens. The movie ends. For some reason, they go their separate ways. And honestly, it kind of feels a bit tacked on. But for the most part, it works. And I think it's because you have people who have now played these roles in several films. They're very comfortable in them. They know what's expected. And let's also be honest. The cast of this movie, they're probably your strongest remaining bunch of actors and actresses left in the MCU. And also, the Rocket storyline is absolutely fantastic and honestly does tug at the heartstrings a bit. In terms of CGI, there's a fantastic battle scene near the end. It's presented as one continuous shot, and James Gunn really does a good job of delivering. Now, there is, of course, mid-credit scenes and post-credit scenes, and I would say stick around for them, because the mid-credit scene is really good, and the post-credit scene drops a little bit of surprising news that I won't spoil for you this time. I think the problem with this movie, going forward, is that it really doesn't fit into the MCU at this point. It feels like something that should have come out right after Endgame to end this series of films for this cast of characters. Now, this doesn't mean that Marvel can't revisit these people, but who knows if you're able to pull them all back together again and make another successful film. So what would I score this? Well, let's give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. It's not a perfect film, but it's fun. And it reminds you of what Marvel used to be. A studio that gave good stories with good characters that you were invested in, solid action, and just an overall good time. Now, will it be the big win that Marvel is looking for? Maybe. I just don't know. I don't know if it can carry the momentum moving forward. Probably because people love the Guardians and they want to see this film, so they will probably go see it. But will that mean this springs Marvel back into the juggernaut it once was? I don't know. Especially since the next film coming out in November is The Marvels. Now, this film has been pushed back at least 4 or 5 times and has had to go through several reshoots. That's never a good sign for any film. My prediction, this movie makes money, is well received, but that superhero fatigue continues. And now that we have finally put the Phase 3 films to rest, a continued slide for Marvel. But hey, what do I know? I'm just some idiot talking to you on YouTube. And with that being said, if you like what you heard, click the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, tell a friend. And if you did not like what you heard, well, I thank you for listening anyway, and you have a great week.